Alright everybody, welcome to Dominate Dominion number 82. I am going to be your caster for this evening, Sakuri Ono. Starting off for this round of 16 match, we are looking at a fight between the teams of Goon Squad and Explosive Dishwasher, so give me a minute to give the teams the signal to go, and we will be hopping into Champion Select right away. Your chat bans for this evening are going to be a ban of Kha'Zix and Wukong coming out of Goon Squad, and a ban of Zyra and Pantheon coming out of Explosive Dishwasher. As soon as we get into Champion Select, I will talk about these in a moment. And right now it looks like we are waiting on both teams to be getting their screenshots ready. I'm just going to go ahead and transition this over so you don't have to stare at the background without music, and then I'll have the proper champion select. Here we go. You'll have to pardon the XSplit thing over there in the corner. Unfortunately, I do not have multiple monitors to work with. Alright, looking at the chat ban, starting off with the ban for Kha'Zix by Goon Squad. Kha'Zix, one of those annoying assassins who has just a little bit of extra power here on the Crystal Scar thanks to his ability to leap over nearly any wall except for the outer Nexus walls. He also has the nice little ability to turn invisible, and since we have seen a nerf to both Sweeper and Lantern lately, there isn't going to be as much of that stealth reveal unless you're specifically trying to counter Kha'Zix. And so since you typically don't want to buy those items as often anymore, you try to avoid running into as many of those stealth champions as possible. He has quite a bit of individual burst down damage thanks to his amplified Q, and just to help him get away, he has a slow built into his kit as well. The ban for Wukong coming out just because he's a bruiser who can really wreck you in team fights if you're caught out of position for even just a second. Thanks to that AoE knock-up ultimate, he has a very clustered high damage ability which can shut down the entire enemy team's ability to react. He also, like Kha'Zix, has the stealth to get away from bad engagements, a near instantaneous gap closer, and some armor shred on his Q, which also extends his auto attack range by a little bit. Next, we are seeing a ban coming out for Zyra by Explosive Dishwasher. Zyra, being a long-range siege mage, she saw a little bit of a kit change lately, but is still as much of an annoyance to deal with as ever. Like Wukong, she has a wide area AoE knockup for her ultimate, which is going to throw you off guard in team fights if all of your members are caught out at once. She has a long-range snare, the ability to poke people off turrets or just to scout the jungle with their plants, and she has a smaller, nice little bit AoE burst onto her Q as well. So overall, just a very strong mage who can really affect how you approach the game if you're fighting one or if you have one. And then finally we have a chat ban for Pantheon. Pantheon, being probably one of the most common bruisers we see here, has the ability to be anywhere he wants to thanks to his global ultimate. He's got a stun mixed into his kit, he's got AoE physical damage, he's got a Heartseeker Spear which can also be used as an execution, and he can block auto attacks as well between his passive and his W, I believe it is. So if you have any sort of auto attack reliant champion, Pantheon is just going to ruin your day. Looking at the standard bans for Goon Squad, we see a ban coming out for Kassadin. Kassadin, being one of the most heavily banned champions here in Dominate Dominion, he's been seeing nerf after nerf after nerf, but still, he has a great silence on his kit. He's got a slow, he's got burst damage. Like Kha'Zix, he has the ability to leap over walls, although not nearly as prevalent as he used to be able to pre-nerfs. But still, he's one of those champions who you typically don't want to be facing against if you have an opponent who knows how to utilize him. Next, we have a ban coming out for Fizz. Fizz, being a slippery, high-mobility assassin, has a very powerful kit thanks to Playful Trickster. It's a gap closer, it's an escape tool, and it also makes you invulnerable to any sort of ability or attack for a grand total of 0.75 seconds. Timed well, you can force the enemy to burn their most valuable ability just trying to shut you down, and it does absolutely nothing. He also has a gap closer on his Q, he has % health shred on his auto attacks thanks to his W, and with his ultimate, he can not only burst a good chunk of a target's health down thanks to the ratios and base on that, but it also performs a slight knockup, which keeps your target from getting away. If that target so happens to be in the middle of the enemy team, that's going to be a group knockup as well. Janna's seen a ban because she is a very mobile support. Thanks to the knockup on her tornado, she is one of the strongest disengaged supports here in the Crystal Scar. If she catches the enemy team in a line, and because she can build AP, not only is she knocking up quite a few champions, but she's dealing a bit of burst damage as well. If you have an AD on her team, not only is her shield going to keep them safe, but it's also going to boost their damage as well. She has a bit of a damage poke with their Zephyr, which also slows down the opponent, but it's her ultimate you've got to watch out for. AoE group knockback centered on Janna, going to be healing your team at the same time, and since the aura doesn't affect or since we've gotten rid of the aura and it didn't even affect alternate team member heals to begin with, that is just a very powerful support ability, a complete fight turner. For Explosive Dishwasher, we're seeing a ban for Jayce. Jayce, a very strong hyper carry, has some long-range sniping potential thanks to his Q and Hypergate combination. Because he gets to build crit here, if he gets his Cannon Form W off, that's 3 shots, just 1, 2, 3, boom, you're done. In the bottom lane, can be a nightmare to deal with, especially with the changes that give him more sustained power on top of having that critical damage. Dr. Mundo is a ban which I admit I am not too terribly familiar with. I suspect it might have something to do with the recent aura changes, however, that only affected heals, that did not affect self-regeneration, so Mundo is still pretty much just as strong as he was before. He is basically what you're talking about, a meat shield here. He gets into the fight, you have a hard time burning him down, and even if you do burn him down once that health regeneration kicks in, he's just very, very, very difficult to kill. You talk about a moving wall of flesh, that is Dr. Mundo in a nutshell. He also has a bit of annoyance with the skill shot cleavers, which if they hit, they take a little bit of the chunk of damage out of you, and they slow you down as well. Jax, a very powerful bruiser, always has been, is probably as far back as I want to say mid-season 2. He has a nice little defensive steroid, can get in there with his leap strike, AoE stun, which also deflects auto attacks. He has damage steroids in his kit, and thanks to the removal of the anti-healing ore, he also has more sustain than ever. Just a very, very dangerous bruiser to mess with. Alright, looking at our picks for Goon Squad, we see a first pick for Nidalee. Very surprised to see that getting through. Nidalee, a very fast mage because she has the ability to take advantage of the heavy brush clusters here on the Crystal Scar. Her Panther form also gives her a nice gap closer and opener in the form of her Pounce, which is on very short cooldown, so it's practically always up. What everybody remembers Nidalee for, though, is those spears. They just come flying out of the jungle, come flying out of the fog of war. You're not going to see them coming. Boom. If you don't have any magic resistance, there goes a significant portion of your health. If she gets you down too low, it's into Panther form, going to run you down and get the execution with her claws. She also has a fair amount of jungle control thanks to her traps, and she has some nice sustain thanks to her healing, so there's pretty much everything she brings to the fight. Damage, support, speed. We are seeing a pick for Gragas coming out of Practice Yellow. Gragas typically seen in the bottom lanes, although every once in a while you will see that odd Gragas up top side. He is slated for some nerfs, but currently he is a very slippery damage dealer. With his body slam, he can either get into a fight, or he can get over some of the narrower walls to escape ganks. He has some nice AoE damage and bottom lane pushing potential thanks to his barrels. He's got some mana sustenance and a damage reduction built right into his kit, so he's going to be trading out a lot of damage while not taking in nearly as much as he's dishing out. And with his ultimate, it's a nice AoE burst, which also performs knockback centered on the barrel, so it can be used to either disengage from a gank or to catch a kill which might get away otherwise. Next, we are seeing a pick coming out for Jarvan by No Namer. Jarvan, very strong engagement bruiser / tank. He doesn't exactly have the tank defensive steroids you usually see, except for a little bit of a shield. However, he is pretty bulky, deceptively so. He can get in with the EQ combination to knock up anybody in a line. He's got armor shred mixed into his kit, so even in that early game, he's just going to be a threat darting in and out of your lines. If he catches you off guard, the rest of his team is sure to follow up for a sure kill. And once he hits that level 6, you've got to watch out for the Cataclysm. Cataclysm coming down on a single target and throwing up a barrier of impassable terrain centered on that. If it's timed well in the jungle, that can completely block off any sort of passageway between certain sections of the Crystal Scar map, which will absolutely mess with anybody's automatic pathing. It can send them spiraling in the wrong direction until they notice what's going on. And give me just a second, I will take down the summoner blockers here, since we are now on the delay. Alright, we are seeing a pick for Trundle coming out from Kerillian. Trundle, a very high sustained bruiser. Likes to get in there, he'll just kind of smack you around with his club, he'll bite you for extra damage. If you try and catch him, he'll throw down his well, it's not the right ability, but the Tainted Soil. It's that thing, that wide AoE which changes the color of the terrain to more of a tainted look. It gives him some increased attack speed and movement speed. If you try to get away or try and catch him, he's going to throw up that pillar of filth to get in your way. It's not only going to be impassable terrain, but it's going to slow anybody who's near it as well. And then for his ultimate, he's going to be stealing everything from you. He's stealing some of your health. He's doing he's doing a % massive damage of his health. He's stealing your armor, he's stealing your magic resistance. So if he uses it on the tank's becoming squishy and Trundle's becoming a beast to kill. If he uses it on a squishy, Trundle's basically going to be dealing true damage and being a lot tougher to take down as well. So Trundle, you just basically got to burst him down with multiple characters if you can. If he's in the bottom lane, he's going to be your worst nightmare to fight 1 versus 1. We are seeing a pick for Vayne coming up by Acoustic Ninja. Vayne, one of the few attack damage carries who can work fairly well here in the Crystal Scar thanks to her positioning, thanks to Tumble, true damage on her True Silver Bolts, and because the terrain is a lot closer than it is on maps like Summoner's Rift or Aram, Vayne has a lot more opportunities to get the stun off on her Condemn, so you're going to be seeing that proccing a lot more often than normal. Mix in the fact that she gets some nice attack damage steroids between her Tumble and her ultimate also making her go invisible when used with Tumble, so it gives her plenty of escape options. Looking at Explosive Dishwasher's picks, we see a pick for Orianna coming out by Shadowblade. Orianna, a nice general support damage hybrid mage, has the ability to protect her teammates thanks to the shield on her Command Protect. She has some nice range poke with her Command Attack and Command Dissonance combo. That Dissonance also being a nice little support ability, giving her team either a speed boost or the enemy team a slow down. And then for repositioning, she can throw in the Command Shockwave, and the ultimate will just reposition anybody who's caught in that. It's a little bit tricky of a skill shot to hit because there's an odd delay on it, and sometimes it won't hit who you think it will. But once it lands, all of a sudden your enemy tanks are going to be swapping with your enemy backline, and you're going to have free reign to wreak havoc. We see a pick for Alistar coming out by PSC0111. Alistar not really seen as often as I think he should be, but it's going to be interesting to see how he's run this match. Alistar has the potential to be a very high durability tank. He'll get in there, he has some nice little bit of sustain built into his kit. He can also knock people up, knock people back, and then with his ultimate, what was already a very bulky cow coming charging at you is going to be even bulkier. So as long as that ultimate is up, he's going to be almost impossible to burn down, and he's just going to be causing all sorts of crowd control to the enemy team. Next, we see a pick coming for Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao, a nice little bruiser or assassin, depending on how you decide to build him. Immediate gap close, has some self-healing on his auto attacks thanks to his W, which can transition to an attack speed steroid. He has a damage boost on his Q, which also translates into a knockup once he gets that third hit off. So not only is he getting those quick bursts of auto attack damage, he's also applying crowd control to a single target as well. So once he gets a nice amount of attack speed, that target is probably not going to escape without any sort of immediate gap opener. Mix in the ultimate, which allows him to knock back enemies around a radius centered on himself. So if you try and turn on him in a group, unless you have any sort of immediate stuns, he's just going to knock you away and make his own getaway. We see a pick for Sejuani. Sejuani, a very bulky tank thanks to the changes of her re-kit. She has the ability to instantly gap close with her Q and deal % health damage, and I apologize for the dogs in the background. They are not very happy right now. It also knocks up the enemy target and can be used to pass through walls like Gragas' Body Slam. She has some AoE damage thanks to her W. It's not very much, but every little bit counts, but that also sets up for her E, which anything hit by her abilities or auto attacks is going to be vulnerable to her procced slow, which is a very powerful potential AoE slow. And if that's not enough, she has her ultimate. Throws out her mace with an ice coating on it, and if it impacts an enemy, it's going to completely stun lock them in place for a short duration. Anybody who's near that impact zone is also going to be stunned. If they're slightly outside the radius, or if you just slightly whiff with your ultimate, it's still going to deal damage, but instead of a stun, that is going to transition into a slow. So you have a little bit of forgiveness with that. And then finally, you are seeing a pick for Leona. Leona, pretty much a nice all-around tank. Probably the definition of tank thanks to that massive defensive steroid she gets with her W. It spikes her armor and MR through the roof once that's completely leveled. She also has quick cooldowns on her Zenith Blade and on her Q stun, which allows her to get into any enemy formation she wishes and lock down a single target. And once she hits level 6, that AoE stun on her ultimate is going to be locking down any group that it lands in the center. Like the Sejuani ult, if you land it perfectly, you're going to get the stun. If you land it slightly off center, you're going to get the slow. So what we're looking at between the Sejuani and the Leona is a lot of AoE lockdown potential. Mix in the Alistar's knockup as well, and there's almost going to be nothing that Team Goon Squad can do once the tanks get in the line. However, unless one of those tanks is going bottom, they may be lacking on damage unless one of the tanks gets to go squishy, so we're going to see how that build goes as the game progresses. And just to touch on it real quick, you see nearly a full regimen of Revive going. Revive being basically the equivalent of Flash and SR. And give me just a minute to get the match screen set up. Alright, that should be transitioned properly. Alright, you're going to have to forgive me if my camera controls are a little bit awkward. It has been a while since I've done this, so I'm a tiny bit rusty. Alright, where are my items? There we go. Alright, everything should be set up properly now. Looking at some of the starting item builds, we are seeing the standard boots and prospectors items coming out. Unlike their Summoner's Rift counterparts, the ring and blade starting items on Dominion are actually quite powerful. They give you a burst to your initial stat, either AD or AP. With their passive, they give you a bonus 200 hit points, which is almost critical for all those windmill fights, except for a few exceptions. Then in the case of the blade, you get some additional lifesteal, and in the ring, you get that mana regen. So it's just giving you all-around stats that you like for your particular character class. Even tanks will dip into these sometimes. For Sejuani, you see the Kindle Gem coming out for that health and CDR boost. For Leona, we see a Glacial Shroud. Not exactly a common pick, but it's great for going against AD. Gives you some extra mana to help with that regen aura, and it also gives you some CDR, so we'll see how that works out for them. Alright, looks like we're going to be having Trundle versus Alistar in the bottom lane. So that's actually going to be a fight of bulk versus bulk. We'll see how that plays out. Once that Trundle ultimate comes out, Alistar is going to be having quite a bit of trouble dealing with him. Alright, I'll transition this up to the top side. Alright, looks like Jarvan's going to be arriving at the windmill first. However, both teams have arrived at equal time. Nidalee firing off the initial spear, looking for a bit of poke, isn't quite able to land it. The initial Gragas barrel comes out, is going to get a bit of poke on his Sejuani. The spear just barely missing. Sejuani going for the knockup, however, does not connect with Gragas. Is going to have to reset to the air side of the windmill. Another spear coming across, just doing a little bit of chip damage right now. Zhao going for the engagement on Nidalee, does manage to get it, but with the knockup by Jarvan, is going to keep him from getting in sort of kill, and he is the first to fall. Gragas turning around, putting damage onto Darkmaster. Leona trying to get out of the way, but that Glacial Shroud is not going to protect against magic damage. She falls to Vayne, and now Orianna left to retreat from the path. Vayne chasing her down. Sejuani coming from over the back, having picked up the health rock, I do believe, but that is not going to save her. The explosion for the Gragas barrel, taking her down to nearly no health. She is barely going to escape this engagement. Zhao did come in with the revive, is going to engage onto Vayne, does get knocked back with the condemn, and the Jarvan knockup, is losing quite a bit of his health. Meanwhile, Gragas getting engaged upon by Leona here in the backline. We are going to see Gragas picking up the kill onto Zhao, and Team Goon Squad is going to be pressing this advantage right now. Sejuani having to go back to base. Jarvan getting another knockup onto Leona. Gragas securing the double kill there. Orianna barely any health, taking another Nidalee spear. That command protect, not enough to protect her from that. The Garrison coming down, however, Gragas throwing the barrel. Orianna does get the health relic in time. Is going to get the command protect. That is going to be enough at the distance to finish Gragas off. Members of Team Goon Squad getting the neutralization actually on this drill. Sejuani is going to be able to chase Vayne off a little bit. Vayne actually staying in for this engagement. She doesn't have as much true damage as she would in the late game, but she is putting quite a bit of hurt on this Sejuani. Is going to have to retreat and let Team Explosive Dishwasher regain their mill, but that is a solid 3-for-2 advantage right now. Excuse me, actually that is a 3-for-1 because Trundle has pushed up all the way down onto the Boneyard at this point. Not able to get that health heroic out from underneath Alistar. However, he is engaging pretty hard onto this. Meanwhile, it looks like Leona cut out into the jungle by both Gragas and Nidalee. Ooh, the barrel! Getting the secured kill there and immediately going to channel on the drill once again. Team Explosive Dishwasher getting pushed into a very early defensive stance. Jarvan going for the knockup is going to not connect with that. Sejuani getting her counter knockup as well. Both members of Team Explosive Dishwasher here just playing defensive on their tower. That is fairly low though, only about a quarter of its health remain before it goes neutral, but it looks like they are going to be able to protect this against the push. You know, down bottom lane, it looks like the Boneyard is still neutral. However, we have two members of Team Goon Squad coming in just against Zhao. Zhao thinking about going and trying to figure out how to approach this. Is going to engage onto Trundle. Trundle taking quite a bit of damage and suffering that knockup as well. Alistar with the nice EQ combination is going to secure the kill on that. Nidalee looking at possibly some poke here, is just going to try and be a nuisance, but can't do anything to directly interrupt that. Meanwhile, it looks like Sejuani and Leona still having to play defensive on this drill here. That drill just seconds away from going neutral. It is very slowly going to regain that health over time. It just depends on how aggressive Team Goon Squad wants to be here, but they are going to catch Zhao in the jungle. Jarvan securing the kill into that thanks to the aid of Vayne. However, it looks like Leona possibly looking to try secure an engagement here. No, they're just going to let the members of Team Goon Squad get away and reposition themselves in the jungle. They may actually catch Gragas here out of the position. The ult going down from Sejuani, the Zenith Blade landing. He is going to be locked down, but neither of these tanks have a whole lot of burst potential right now. And Gragas is going to get away to get the health relic. Leona is in pursuit, but we do see Nidalee and Vayne in the area. They may come in to try and help him with this. Gragas just kind of hanging out here in the back. Is going to be able to go back to base, maybe. Sejuani kind of looking to see if she wants to do something. It looks like up top side, Orianna going to be caught out position by No Namer. Jarvan is going to be able to pick up the kill on that. Nidalee going in for the pounce, looking to get the execution on Leona. The defensive steroid is down, so there's the kill on that. And Gragas actually coming out from the shadows to pick up the kill on Sejuani, so that is going to be the drill going neutral, and that is actually going to be captured in favor of Team Goon Squad. Zhao looking to do some backcapping here, but he doesn't know there's a Vayne waiting here. He's going to take that initial auto attack. Vayne doesn't look like she wants to engage too hard onto Zhao, with good reason, because if he turns around with that gap closer, she's going to have very few options to deal with that. Looks like he's just going to wait here patiently in the brush, possibly thinking about backcapping again, but here comes Nidalee. Lands the spear, Zhao goes in for the engagement, but he's so low that Nidalee immediately shifts into Kuker form for the extra damage. Vayne comes up and they do clean up that kill. Meanwhile, it looks like Leona and Sejuani trying to do their best to zone Jarvan out to regain the drill. They do manage to take it neutral, but Jarvan has provided enough of a distraction for them to hard engage. But here comes Vayne and Nidalee again. The Cataclysm coming down onto Leona. Leona using the ult to try and get the stun onto Jarvan. Does manage to land it, but only gets the slow onto Vayne. So with Nidalee's help, they are going to turn that around and pick up the Leona. Sejuani now left in a 1v3. Thinking about trying to stop it, but honestly, without her team, there's not a whole lot she can do. It looks like, once again, the Boneyard has gone neutral, though, and Team Goon Squad is going to be picking this up thanks to Gragas and Trundle. Looks like Team Goon Squad actually almost picked up the drill. We're engaged upon by Zhao and Sejuani, but that is just not going to be enough thanks to the combined crowd control and damage balance that Team Goon Squad just has right now on the drill. Leona coming back into the field. It looks like she has a Glacial Shroud and a Warden's Mail, so she's actually not going to have that much damage against Nidalee's magic damage. So she's going to be actually kind of hard-pressed to do anything against anyone except Vayne. As you can see, that spear landing just chunking her down despite being a tank. The Zenith Blade going out does not connect with Vayne, just barely misses another spear, but she's so low on health. And this is a 5 cap in favor of Goon Squad. Right now, Explosive Dishwasher just kind of bottled up in their base, trying to figure out how to get out and at least get 1 point back in their favor. However, the 3 members of Team Goon Squad right here doing a fantastic job keeping the bottle, and Leona going in for the engagement. We see the attack and shockwave coming out, or excuse me, dissonance coming out from Orianna, but Jarvan just going to get to that back line, destroy Orianna. Leona being caught out here opposition, going too far in, trying to get hold of Vayne, is going to die for her efforts. It looks like Explosive Dishwasher might be able to get this neutral. Trundle doing his... No, that sustain, keeping him just barely alive. Jarvan coming in for the cleanup. Trundle getting away by the skin of his teeth. That is enough of a distraction for Sejuani to get a free channel, but no, Vayne's going to be there in time. Sejuani does get the knock up onto that, but the Condemn is going to knock her back before the AoE damage can do too much to her depleting health pool. Orianna trying to get that command protect out, but the travel time is just way too slow to save Sejuani in that situation. Ooh! That Nidalee spear on the ramp is just going to burn Leona down. And that looks like that's going to be the match right there. There's going to be Goon Squad winning out over Explosive Dishwasher with a total of 484-0. Alright, looking at your post-game stats for the match, it looks like pretty much a domination on terms of Team Goon Squad in terms of KDA ratio. On Team Explosive Dishwasher, only Orianna and Alistar being able to pick up a kill. They were just getting bottlenecked and pushed back so hard that it's not too terribly surprising when you look at the stats from that perspective. Looking at the damage dealt to champions, Nidalee landing those long-range spears on Leona, pretty much pushing her to the top of the damage charts with Vayne close to follow. Looking at Team Explosive Dishwasher, Orianna doing quite a bit of work for her team, probably because of that AoE damage. The rest of her team fairly even in damage, with Zhao pulling up a close second. And then looking at your Graveyard Hero for the game, as is tradition, it looks like, oh wow, that is some of the lowest death timers for a team I have seen in quite some time, even for a 5 cap. It looks like Zhao is going to be your Graveyard Hero for the match. Alright, we are going to be going back onto break, and I will update the stream when round 2 is ready, so stick around and enjoy the evening.